everyone. This is Bella, and today I would like to go over the general astrology for South Africa. This is a general astrology horoscope update of the topics potentially activated in the mundane return and ingress charts for South Africa, looking at the solar return for the year, the Aries ingress for the first 6 months, the Libra ingress for the next 6 months until April of 2024, including also a bit of solar arc, secondary progressions, profection, eclipses, and for Doria. I use mostly Hellenistic approaches for the birth chart of South Africa, which is 27 April 1994 at 0000 hours, as it marked the importance and the beginning of the first day that every South African had the freedom to cast a vote. There are some discrepancies in which charts to use and which was the proper time, and we also do not have the president's exact birth time, as we usually would also look at his chart. But I find that this chart seems to work well for South Africa, and it might still need to be fine-tuned, but for now I feel the 0000 hours is a good marking point because of the deeper meanings associated here. The interpretation of the radix astrology chart is based on the given birth day, time, and location. These interpretations must be considered as suggestions and possibilities. The public is invited to reflect upon the interpretations and assess if they are worth or worthy of being taken into consideration and implemented or not. The public should also know that the astrology chart reflects a potential, but does not offer a guarantee for that potential. Now, the solar return summary for April 2023 to April 2024. The rising sign of Aquarius graces the solar return chart for South Africa, bringing us back to ourselves, and suggests that the country and its people are actively taking initiative rather than waiting until things get comfortable. There is a fixicity of purpose, resolution, self-reliance, and independent themes here. Great innovation as well as scientific breakthroughs can have fertile ground this year. It also puts us at the helm of the changes associated worldwide with the age of Aquarius as we move into this new period of change. The first house, Aquarius, such as in the radix, emphasizing a return to ourselves. This house represents the country and its inhabitants as a whole, its general condition of prosperity and health, or the reverse. The solar return chart for this year brings attention to our authentic selves. With Aquarius rising, it urges us to think independently, experiment with changes in our thinking, and express ourselves in new ways. We are seeking inspiration and new ideas and focusing on planning for the future while detaching from past ties. This desire for change may also manifest in our appearance as we experiment with new styles of dress and perhaps even a new lifestyle. It suggests that the country and its people are actively taking initiative. There is fixity of purpose, as I mentioned, resolution, self-reliance, and independent themes. Our humanness is emphasized. Humanness is emphasized. Great innovation and scientific breakthroughs, like I've mentioned, can have fertile ground. We can emerge like a butterfly from a chrysalis. This new chapter of our life may mark the end of one way of life and the beginning of another. This is also a human sign emphasizing the extremes between humanity and everything opposite of that, AI, which also comes under the umbrella of Aquarius, and also with Pluto entering here, as it also brings our attention to energy, electricity, power, technological issues, and financial topics. And also the good and bad of AI. The ruler of the ascendant is Saturn in the second house of Pisces, which deals with national wealth, the executor, revenue, and all places and activities concerned with money, such as banks, stock exchange, financial institutions, money markets, and trade. Therefore, we can expect a financial crisis worldwide, but also definite effects here, and changes can be expected, especially with the nodes at the moment still in Taurus and Scorpio until the middle of the year. We can expect background work, especially in regards to the financial shifts coming. Saturn here can also indicate a colder winter, water topics, ships, danger at sea, and more drownings are possible. The modern ruler of the rising sign is Uranus in the fourth house of Taurus, which rules the land, the owners of it, and the workers on it, the crops and produce of the land, mines, buildings, the people as contrasted with the monarch, the democracy as contrasted with the aristocracy, the opposition in parliament, and it can also afflict the government with this position. It can add more revolutionary tendencies, as well as an electricity and energy focus, innovation in the areas of currency, energy, independence, as well as power and control dynamics. Power over the people or people taking their power back. And that's with Uranus currently in the house of Taurus in our fourth house. Now, South Africa is going through its Saturn return, which will be exact on February 29th, 2024, which is also the year of the elections. Now, Saturn, the ruler of borders and endings, guides us in understanding our limitations and molding ourselves to be better equipped for life's challenges. It may seem intimidating at times, but it serves as a catalyst to help us defend ourselves and channel our inner strength towards a greater purpose. Without Saturn's influence, we may never reach our full potential, take accountability for our choices, and develop resilience towards the harsh realities of existence. Saturn seeks to gain mastery over specific aspects of life, and in this context, it emphasizes the need to master financial and resource management. What happened the last time Saturn was in Pisces for South Africa? As the dispositor sits in the 10th house of government. Saturn was last in Pisces from February 1994 to February 1996. During this time period, South Africa was still in a post-apartheid era, with Nelson Mandela serving as the first democratically elected president of the country. The nation was facing a range of challenges, including high unemployment rates, a struggling economy, and widespread social inequality. In 1994, South Africa held its first democratic elections, marking the end of apartheid and the beginning of a new era. During Saturn's transit through Pisces, the country was focused on rebuilding and redefining itself as a democratic nation. Mandela's government implemented various policies aimed at addressing issues such as poverty, healthcare, education, and job creation. However, the country also faced significant obstacles during this time, including widespread crime, corruption, as well as political instability. Saturn's transit through Pisces may have highlighted these challenges and forced the country to confront them directly, ultimately leading to the implementation of measures to address them. The transits of Saturn focuses on structures and institutions, some of which may need to be dismantled to make way for new ones. Saturn is often associated with traditional, patriarchal, and capitalist systems that must be addressed, whether through rebellion, assimilation, or reinvention. The entry of Saturn in Pisces marks the culmination of a cycle that began in 1994. What has brought us to this point, and what will be the nature of this final stage? Saturn also rules the 12th and the 1st houses of South Africa, and therefore, besides being placed in the natal 2nd house, it will also cover these topics: prisons, reformatories, criminals, spies, secret enemies of the country, at home or abroad, hospitals, asylums, institutions for those who are weak, infirmaries, or in need of charity, the welfare state, possibly secret societies and occult religions, the country and its inhabitants as a whole, its general condition of prosperity and health. It can also affect the government itself, as the ruler or dispositor of Saturn, in this case, is Jupiter, and sits in the 10th house of government. Some possible themes that can arise during a country's Saturn return includes reassessment of values and priorities. Saturn return can bring a period of reflection and reassessment of the values and priorities that underpin a country's political and social structure. Economic restructuring. It's associated with hard work, discipline, and austerity. A Saturn return can be a time when a country experiences economic difficulties or restructuring as it seeks to become more self-sufficient and efficient. Political upheaval, as it wants to reform. It's also trying to address underlying issues, also of inequality within its political system. National identity. It's associated with tradition and heritage, and Saturn return can prompt a country to reevaluate its national identity and cultural values. Responsibility. It's associated with responsibility and accountability. A Saturn return can be a time when a country takes stock of its responsibilities to its citizens and the wider world and seeks to address any failings in this regard. And in our case, this will be very potent as Jupiter is in government. Now, overall, a country's Saturn return can be a challenging but ultimately transformative period, as it prompts a reassessment of values and priorities and an opportunity for us to grow and to renew and to take a step up in maturity in how we handle things. It's a coming of age, a new branding, a maturation, and a stepping into similar themes towards independence and a necessary upgrade in government. Saturn will be here for 2.5 years, in which we can expect great changes in regard to these topics and areas mentioned. Interestingly, as Saturn is in our financial house, South Africa joined BRIC as a formal member in 2010, which led to the group being renamed BRICS, dealing with including Brazil, Russia, India, China, as well as South Africa. We can expect this to also be a revisiting theme. For those unfamiliar with this term, BRICS is a grouping of 5 major emerging economies of the countries I just mentioned. The term BRIC was first coined by Jim O'Neill, an economist at Goldman Sachs, in 2001 to describe these 4 economies, excluding South Africa at that time, that were expected to be the most dominant emerging markets in the world by the year 2050. In 2010, South Africa was invited to join the group, and it became known as BRICS. The BRICS nations represent almost half of the world's population and a significant share of global GDP. The group is often seen as a counterbalance to the traditional economic powers of the Western world. The BRICS nations have held summits since 2009 to discuss issues of mutual interest and cooperation, including economic, political, as well as social issues. Now, in this solar return, the moon is in Cancer, strong and in rulership. The moon is the people, and the people are featuring strongly this year. Emotional reactions are featured strongly. A new birth can be symbolized here. Women's issues can be more upfront, or a strong influence of a woman, on the other hand, is also possible, but a signal to protect the people, or the people to protect themselves and that which they value. The moon is also in the crescent phase, strengthening assertiveness, suggesting we are eager to leave behind the past and get on with our future. The people have faith in their own abilities to rise to challenges, and that really supports the Aquarius rising sign of the return to ourselves. It is situated in the 6th house, and the 6th house covers public health or illness, epidemics, health service, national services such as the army, the navy, and the civil service as servants of the country, workers and employees generally, trade unions, and so forth. So we could also see our army stepping up to the plate in some way. We can see that health is a focus this year, as well as animals, skills, working conditions, service, daily routines, responsibilities, our work conditions, women's work and health issues, adjusting commitments, and reassessing priorities regarding these topics. But responsibilities come up in a big way, as well as enemies. Discoveries of medical treatments and new technology and the healing process with other people are more likely. Let's also remember that the pharmaceutical industry benefits from ill people, and so do most of the medical field. But discoveries are highly likely, especially with the technology upgrades we are receiving in the medical world, can make huge shifts for people. In May, there will be a meeting in Geneva, Switzerland, with the UN and the WHO, where countries are to vote and give up their sovereignty in regards to health. Of course, this is not worded in this term. Last year, Botswana was the only country that refused, which allowed a delay. Thank you, Botswana. Once countries gave up their sovereignty, it will be basically crowning the WHO as dictator, and anytime they see it fit to call for an emergency, implementing and or allowing mandatory medicinal treatments, medical surveillance, QR codes to allow you to exist, tracking and tracing, unreasonable search and seizures, censorship, a blanketed redistribution of wealth between countries, a global digital health certification, and ultimately complete control, as they can decide at any moment when and why and how they want to declare a emergency. Let's not be one of the countries to vote yes. Let's protect our sovereignty, especially with both the moon and Mars in this solar return house of Cancer in the 6th house. The moon also squares Jupiter, trines Neptune, and opposes Pluto. Self-discipline will need to be stronger to reach goals. At times, it's the people versus those in high places. We can expect more deaths than usual, especially also now with Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius for a brief stay. The people can experience more illness and allergic reactions, but also more healing, especially through spiritual means. Some experimental medicines may be more accessible, while other medications become more scarce. Conflict can arise dramatically through opposition with intense and powerful technology, people, or regulations. This can very much be connected to infrastructure, trade, financial institutions, and of course the energy crisis and rise of power and control with technology and indoctrination regarding the media. The Sun in Taurus is in the 3rd house in Placidus and in the 4th in the whole sign system, putting an extra emphasis on these houses this year. All means of inland transit, locomotion, airlines, communication, railways, road and river traffic, cars, all means of news, information, disseminating information, the post office, communication networks, the internet, telephones, faxes, newspapers, magazines, ephemeral publications, periodicals, neighboring nations, energy and infrastructure. Now, and then of course, the 4th house, I will get to that in a second, but this indicates communication, media decisions, voting, propaganda, electricity, power technology, and infrastructure as a focus this year, especially for leadership, as the president or those in charge are sitting here needing to take care of this. Factual science and concrete knowledge is an emphasis. This can include topics such as partnerships, youth, recreation, sport, arts, entertainment, freedom, politics, the advisors of government, and there can be inconsistency, changes, and not enough in-depth detail about these issues possibly. But there's also a possibility for many ideas and versatility. There may be a message which needs to be heard by many people, not only South Africans. The 4th house also deals with the land, the owners of it, the workers, the crops and the produce of the land, mines, buildings, the people, as contrasted with the monarch, democracy contrasted with aristocracy, the opposition in parliament, putting another spotlight on governmental changes to come. The Sun is conjunct Mercury, sextile Saturn, conjunct the North Node, and opposing the midheaven. Mercury is also retrograde, which can also mean that the president or the rulers or the ruling party can go through much reorganization, rethinking, new information coming in, and having to do a lot of shifts back and forth during this time. But there's definitely a possibility of something possibly repeating itself in regards to the ANC or the political situation in South Africa as far as the rulers and the opposition is concerned. But change is a key word this year. There can be news of changes, or communication can be without much consideration and reciprocation. Young people may play a part, and there are decisions to be made. It's time to do things differently. And the president or ruling party could have a change of heart or play a mentorship role in some way. They can also have a change of mind. But the attention is less on the rulers and more on the people and the opposition. But the sextile to Saturn can indicate more ease in being successful regarding responsibilities. There is connections here and opportunity for growth and new partnerships. The president may have many personal and private issues taking much of his attention, but the country itself will have events bringing us back again and again to our identity. And there will be a need to not only improve South Africa, and especially its energy crisis, but to push for its fullest possible potential. In the opposition's house, this is where the Sun is, and could the president be at odds with the direction of the country? Is he running it? Could he be moving, or are we welcoming a visitor or a new party to the country? A change in the country with an emphasis on homeland and resources. Mercury is in Taurus in the 4th. Harmony through conflict, and can be stubborn, but can also make ideas real, practical. It's also the ruler of the 5th and 8th, the youth or an advisor opposing government, financial or another scandal connected to the president or other political figures could be possible. This year, the president is likely to make a promise or commitment to change. There are structural changes to be made in order to improve living conditions and the basic functioning and foundation of the country. What makes us, us? What makes South Africa, South Africa? Now, Mercury is also retrograde and conjunct the sun. And the president speaking with foreigners, making agreements on possibly electricity, youth, or taking and doing it ourselves, doing an independent approach from scratch using our own resources. Could this be a possibility? Or could this be a common property piece? It's also conjunct Uranus, where electricity, internet, energy agreements, new inventions, and all of these topics coming, being ahead of the times, new ideas, modern ideas, genius ideas, or the need to make new inventions and discoveries is now made real and concrete and decided on. So I think that there's real hope in the area of our energy crisis. Uranus in Taurus in the 4th can bring unusual change, experiments regarding resources, land, the opposition, the ruler, and the youth. Uranus also rules over rioting and outbreaks of political tension, right-wing political ideas, free market enterprise, fascism, and the urge towards individualism. It rules separation, scientific breakthroughs and discoveries, explosions, anarchy, and nihilism. So this also brings, again, the opposition parties strongly as a focus here, and also self-made parties. Uranus opposes the midheaven with more emphasis on opposition towards the government. This again brings up inheritance, funding, gifts, land, electricity, and negotiations. Sudden and unexpected changes are also possible. Rebellion can be involved, the youth, activism, alliances that were unexpected, and opposition to how things are run, or maybe how the electricity crisis is being dealt with. Maybe this pushes us to the point of breakthrough. Changes in the very basis of our country, how we live, and who has now an open invitation. This also puts a light on voting and the desperate change required in how the country is being run, or really by who. The president and those in charge will realize it's time to pay attention to the structures that uphold the country, as the people will not accept anything less. Physical surroundings, the buildings, banks, partnerships, and investments come in here. There is potential here with hard work. As South Africans, we can succeed, we can rebuild, we can, if those that lead with integrity. The president and those in power will have to put their attention on the real matters at hand, and if they do, they will achieve more cooperation from the people. The next elections in South Africa are scheduled to be held in 2024. The exact dates have not yet been announced, but the Independent Electoral Commission, or the IEC, which is responsible for organizing and conducting elections in the country. However, the elections are typically held every 5 years, with the last elections taking place in May of 2019. What I find interesting is that we also have our Saturn return exact in February of 2024. Now, Venus is in Gemini in the 5th house and is also the dispositor of our ruler and the opposition and the 4th house. Now, the fifth house deals with theaters, public houses, all places of amusement, entertainment, and pleasure. It deals with the birth rate, children, sexual concerns, sports, speculation, gambling. Some consider this also connected to high society and formal social functions. It has also been suggested that it relates to the House of Lords, as it opposes the 11th. Traditional astrologers also include ambassadors under this house, but it is a political house. It's also a house that deals with money and freedom, sovereignty, and Venus, as the ruler of our ruler and also of our opposition here, puts an extra emphasis on these topics. Now, financial changes and decisions, as this is Taurus, Julius Malema or another party could express themselves more this year, involving the youth, self-employment, children, money, entertainment, important people, legal issues, and sport plays an important role this year, as this is also the profected house for the year. Venus rules the 4th and 9th houses of law, opposition party partnerships, energy agreements and talks. Changes in laws are also possible, and many changes with officials and those in office. Partnerships are highlighted as Venus and Mercury are in mutual reception. But remember, Mercury is also in retrograde. An archaic volume is connected to these degree points. So this could also include a big speech or announcement that takes place. Venus and Mercury in mutual reception, which could again indicate funding or high connections and changes connected to this. But since Venus is in Gemini, there can be an openness to change, but not necessarily a definite readiness, so to speak, to commit. But with Uranus there, it seems inevitable, as changes will just happen with Uranus there. Venus sextiles Chiron. There is an understanding between partners, using the past as fuel for negotiations. These are really the placements for an opposition party to take a stand regarding the energy crisis and the conditions of the people, using the youth to assist in taking action or making a stand, as we've also seen previously. Mars is in Cancer, the 6th house, as we've mentioned, in fall. Mars is considered weak here, and it also rules our government. Mars here can be back and forth or act on something from the side, so to speak, not head on, but more passive aggressive. But it can fiercely be protective and can be extremely reactionary if pushed into a corner, and tenacious. But Mars here can also denote the condition of the government, weak, not up to the task, and it just reiterates the changes needed. But interestingly, it is under the power of the moon, the people, who is in dignity and in strength. Mars governs the military, soldiers, and noted military and naval men, war, terrorist attacks, industrial disputes, strikes and conflicts, opposition forces, fire services, arson, as well as incendiarism. And the 6th house also deals with public health or sickness, epidemics, health services, the national services, like I've mentioned, the Army, Navy, and Civil Service, and servants of the country, workers and employees in general, trade unions. So all of these things will be coming out and can be dealt with argumentatively with Mars here. There can be anger about these issues, about our working conditions, the health implementations or legislation in regards to this, daily routines being affected by energy, the government involvement with these issues, And it also rules the third house of infrastructure. So it brings in communication, roads, electricity, our commute, all of these things, trade. Mars here can be tenacious, protecting, retreat into its shell when it gets hurt, but it will fight for what it wants to the death. It can denote more illness, pandemic emergencies, or health issues that need to be dealt with as well. Mars is sextile Uranus and able to express enormous energy, which again brings attention to action, activism, revolutionary changes in regards to necessary changes affecting us every day, hard work regarding an important project. But Mars sextile Uranus can also bring in opportunities for change in regards to our energy crisis. Mars is squaring Chiron, indicating that the government could have difficulty being assertive. There can be too much anger or force, or a fear that you may be met with anger with the requests that are being made. Old wounds can be triggered, and since Mars also rules the government, it can indicate that something here is unwell. More responsibilities regarding health, also of the government's well-functioning or lack thereof. The Army and Navy can, of course, also play a part. Jupiter in Aries in the third house. This covers all areas of transit, locomotion, communication, railways, all traffic, cars, airlines, disseminating news and information, communication, internet, electricity, telephones, magazines, periodicals, neighboring countries, and so forth. So there is an international influence here with Jupiter in this house. It also rules religious and judicial connections, the national state, religion, priests, the divinity, the justice system, and prominent judges, barristers, national inquests, the national wealth, banks, as well as bankers. And we know that in the radix chart, Jupiter sits in the house of government, where we know we also have international influence, even if it is in an occult way. And we have now Jupiter that deals with the financial wealth of the country, also in the third house here, where we deal with trade as well. Now, big decisions are about lifestyle and about moving to a new way of life could be taking place. The key is expansion, keeping our options open, but much busyness with meetings and improvement in the area of infrastructure. As choices and changes are made, it feels like a load could have been lifted, and we can move forward with excitement. So this gives me hope. Choices need to be ethical, though. This again indicates a possibility of legislation regarding movement, social conditions, communication, trade, freedom of speech, infrastructure, etc. There can also be more attention on exploring spiritual sites or changing names of streets or places or things such as that. Jupiter here seeks freedom and independence in the third house. It seeks freedom in regards to communication networks, new big topics. It seeks to inspire others through insights. It can also bring a grouping of for action. This could be hopeful in innovative ideas and solutions, new opportunities regarding infrastructure and many issues, a decision regarding the power in South Africa, trade, currency, can also indicate a spiritual movement in this area. Will and power, as it also rules the first ray and the 11th house of legislation, politics, the caucus. It also rules the second house of banks, financial institutions, as well as luck and beneficiaries. Now, its ruler or its dispositor is Mars in the 6th house in Cancer under the moon's disposit in dignity. Jupiter also squares Pluto. A large financial event can trigger a complete transformation. Powerful people are here. I'll say that again. Powerful people are here. Foreign influences. Jupiter conjunct the North Node. There can be preaching or teaching or leading groups of people, inspiring others onto your destiny's path, your calling. A new leader or a leader inspiring others can appear. New innovation. This can also be a new world leader, because this is taking place in Aries, which is the world axis. A new vision, new scientific breakthroughs, and a new currency possibly coming out of these activations. New foreign connections. Could this also be related to BRICS? New connections, new allies, international travel industry, and trade can be impacted. Saturn in Pisces, in the second house, also brings strong karma from the past to work through in this lifetime. And we are being called up to face these issues now as we are in our Saturn return, and as we also just finished our reverse nodal return this year, as we finish out the Taurus and Scorpio axis of the nodes and eclipses here. So sits at the 6th degree of Pisces with the Sabian symbol officers on dress parade at this place. Now, Saturn sextiles the North Node, which is the collective destiny that we are supposed to move towards. And we can indicate that there is opportunities to achieve our goals, and that we can create opportunities with these energies. Maybe we have passed the test. Maybe we have matured. Maybe we're ready to put this puzzle back together. Maybe we're ready to finally put our differences behind us and work together towards a common goal. And remember, we're Aquarius rising. We don't follow the masses. We might lead and inspire the masses, but we do things differently. We do things from a higher perspective, and we take the road less traveled. Uranus is in the 4th house of Taurus, which has general influence over rioting and outbreaks in political tension, right-wing political ideas, free market enterprise, fascism, and the urge towards individualism. It rules separation, scientific breakthroughs and discoveries, explosions, anarchy, and nihilism, like I've mentioned. So Uranus is sitting here across from our government, wanting to make change. Now, Uranus brings unusual change and experiments, also in regards to the opposition, also the ruler, as it sits in the 4th house in opposition of the government, and also in the areas of youth, self-made, advisory, and so forth. Now, Uranus is at the 19th degree, which is symbolized by a new continent rising out of the ocean, a harvest moon. So something is coming to fruition here, and something's coming to a fullness in order for something new to appear. The aspects of Uranus, it's square the ascendant, which really pushes us to express our personality. And this will also be especially in regards to the country as a whole, but also the opposition. Unlikely to be conservative, preferring to recognize our own individual rights and the rights of those on the outskirts of society. So the opposition to government will also be very focused on the rights of those on the outskirts of society. Especially will be seen regarding the energy crisis and the opposition, like I've mentioned. The more that we are forced to conform to society's regimes and expectations, then the more there's a likelihood of rebelliousness. In other words, you resent limitations unless you respect their usefulness. You're not judgmental except of those who stand in judgment. You believe that all humans and other creative forces of nature have a right to live in harmony. However, you do not respond readily to those who enforce their will on others. For this reason, you may stand out from the crowd. Others may rely on you to speak up on their behalf. We're leaders, not followers. Now, in this case, if it's in the case of, for example, the EFF speaking up for others, or the president going another way, but there are leadership changes here. Neptune is in Pisces, the second house. Deception in finances, endings, dissolving in financial situations, delusion, confusion, loss, financial losses, grief, values are changing, financial and otherwise. Material versus spiritual values. Another factor pointing to financial shifts taking place. Something is dissolving here in order to bring in something new. Chiron in Aries, the third house, we may become a pioneer in a way which will be of service to humanity. Maybe after a fall, we pioneer financially or using our regenerating powers to solve our energy crisis. So the wound that we have with our infrastructure in South Africa could become our strength with Chiron here. It's painful, but it's absolutely worth it in the end. Continuing on about the ascendant in Aquarius, as I mentioned at the beginning, the ascendant in Aquarius natally, but also for the solar return, puts a spotlight on scientific ideals and innovation, power and control over the people or by the people, unrest, a fixity of purpose, resolution, self-reliance, and independence is a natural tendency for South Africa. We've been ousted before. We've been the black sheep before, and we have survived. So we are strong and we have everything it takes to stand up. We are willing to take initiative and break free. We may want to take our country back with Aquarius here, as it is in the natal. And remember that Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio, the fixed signs, and we are on the fixed cross as South Africans, are all financial signs. Now, for the solar return chart, it is at the 16th degree of Aquarius, our ascendant degree, which is symbolized with the Sabian symbols as a big businessman at his desk. So there is decisions, important leadership connections here. Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in this generation have the ability to make scientific breakthroughs for the benefit of humanity, but also for the counter benefit of humanity, and may be forced to change the way science is viewed. Pluto denotes the principle of metamorphosis and regeneration. And we as South Africans are a very Plutonian country. We regenerate, and we will be able to regenerate again and again. Various modern authors include the following in its mundane signification of Pluto: refuge and refuse and excrement, sewers, all aspects of life that are carried on in the dark or hidden from public view, political undergrounds, espionage, organized crime, great wealth and power, violence, rape, all activities that are transformative, like death and rebirth, and that bring hidden information into the light. But it's got very, very much to do also with money and power. And Pluto is now at the 0 degree of Aquarius, where it will be for a few months, giving us a bit of a foreshadowing of what will occur and unfold over the next 20 years once Pluto moves permanently for that period into Aquarius, which in my opinion is not really fully until January of 2024, when the Sun and Pluto connects at 0 degrees of Aquarius. But until it fully moves in there, it will still be retrograding back and forth between Aquarius and Capricorn, where it's been for the last 15 years or so. Now, Pluto in the first house, this year we're undergoing changes in the way in which we view and express ourselves. Pluto strips self-deceit and forces us to face truths about ourselves and our country. Changes can occur that challenge us to live with more purpose and integrity. We are to take better care of our health, or we could become depleted. Pluto here forms a T-square between the government and the land and opposition. It is possible that the underlying fear of the politicians prompts them to mirage and retain control. Matters of power are prominent right now as events or people challenge them to reassess effectiveness. Where are they in control, and do they exercise this control wisely? Pluto here also brings in AI technologies and other forms or origins of control over the people or by the people. And until the middle of the year, we have a foreshadowing of Pluto in Aquarius once it enters officially after its retrograding in 2024 and on for 20 years of complete transformation. It's also important to realize that Pluto will be fully moving in there in January, around the 20th of January. January and February are big months because this is also the timing of when we might possibly around this time have the elections and our Saturn return. So all of this ties in financially. So we can expect a huge financial shift and power and control shift. As Pluto also very much, once it enters a sign, we can expect big events at times. Sometimes it can be a breakdown that then forces us to rebuild in order for us to completely transform and turn that into something positive. But it can sometimes first start as a breakdown before it becomes a breakthrough. And this can be a long process with Pluto entering Aquarius and staying there for 20 years, which will completely change the face of humanity itself, our DNA. And it brings in topics such as AI and its ability to also regenerate, as that's what Pluto does. And the potency of this powerful shift cannot be understated. I do not have the time to go over fully what this could bring. But I think what I might do is I might do a separate video on the possibilities of Pluto entering into our first house, and also the importance of how it marks us as a country as well as a player in the end game, as we are an Aquarius rising radix chart to begin with this ingress of Pluto that really marks the entry into the age of Aquarius as well. But if you are interested, I did also do a video on the general astrology possibilities for 2024 in my general horoscope on my channel. So you can also go look at that. That's for the world in general collectively. And I cover the area of Pluto and what it's done in its 14-15 year transit through Capricorn, that it's now basically finishing out as it moves into Aquarius, and what possibly could be brought up for us with Pluto being in Aquarius. It's very condensed, but you can go listen to that and have a bit of a bigger understanding of the background of what we're dealing with here. And then I will also, like I mentioned, I will do another video with this topic, as it's quite intense. But in the end, we could experience something very dramatic, often upsetting. So see it as an opportunity to start from the ground up, because this transit favors transformation, and soul evolution is its ultimate goal. But the transformation that occurs once Pluto has moved completely through a sign is permanent. And of course, Pluto is also squaring the nodes at this time and for most of this year, which also squares all the main areas of life in South Africa. So this is a very potent year in regards to change. The Aries ingress chart for South Africa on the 20th of March 2023, which in this case is Sagittarius rising, and will be valid for a period of 6 months until the Libra ingress, whereas the solar return chart that I just went over would be valid from the country's birth date until the next birthday. Now, we have a balsamic moon phase, which often can feel like an urgency to complete unfinished business, which makes very much sense for me with also Mercury retrograde at this time. During this phase, you are ending a karmic cycle, learning to let go of the past, and we are embracing the potentials for the future. We have Leo on the 9th house cusp, which brings 9th house topics to the forefront, which would be cultural, international affairs, the law, the truth, shipping, sea traffic, airplane industry, long distance traffic generally, international, anything connected to the international world, whether passengers or commerce, long distance or international communications, religion, churches, law, courts, preachers, universities, professors, the school system, higher learning, philosophical and scientific institutions and publications, and disseminating of information. This is extra emphasized as Sagittarius is the ascendant ruler for the next 6 months, as well as naturally rules the 9th house topics in astrology. It also brings the 11th house topics of the radix chart to the ascendant as a connecting focus. The 11th house, which deals with beneficiaries, it deals with foreign influence, it deals with allies, it deals with Parliament, especially the House of Commons, town and country councils and similar bodies, friends of the nation, energy markets, financial markets, the web, legislation, technology, and connectivity. Now, the moon in this chart is in the 4th house of Pisces. The people can be more sensitive, more reactive. Mental health and all health in general is a focus. It again can bring our attention to forgiveness, compassion, the fact that we need to stand together as humans against what the world is facing at this time. It also again brings our attention to our lymphatic systems. We need to detox our water quality. We need to check that. And let's keep an eye on storms, intense and changing weather patterns, as well as our oceans and the sea. So the eye of the people for the first 6 months, including the health areas and everyday lives, as we've mentioned in the previous chart, is also in this area, also opposing the government. Opposition parties can become more reactive during this period, and this is where the people's focus will be. on the fourth house issues. The moon in the fourth is in a separating sextile with Uranus in the sixth and can indicate an influential person that may have shaken things up in our everyday lives, new technology and connectivity, which will possibly change how and what we do for work. An increasing amount of work can be taken over by technology such as AI. Many people can lose their work and have to find new ways to earn an income. More practical, human, and out-of-the-box thinking. Something that cannot be replaced by a robot. More trades. Remember that human connection and love cannot be replaced. Spirituality cannot be replaced. God cannot be replaced. This will also intensify our need and desire for real people. In other cases, it may just be much more, techniques or software learning in regards to all the changes happening so quickly regarding technology now with Pluto in Aquarius. A new or unusual disease could find a way as well, affecting our everyday lives, or some kind of biological threat. Venus conjunct Uranus here in rulership with the North Node can also denote the central bank digital currency playing out in our everyday lives or being introduced in some way. And many people will not be happy with it, causing activism and revolutionary energies. This can indicate values concerning beauty, love, but also currency, money, and how we spend our everyday lives. The practical sign of Taurus, Earth, indicates practical solutions, such as going back to the basics as much as possible, back to growing our own food, creating with our hands, joining like-minded communities, separating from the robotic culture and trade. Uranus, the North Node, and Venus here can also indicate partnerships, new partnerships, solutions regarding scientific breakthroughs connected to currency, banks, food, electricity, power, medical technology, and so forth. The but is that Venus in Taurus doesn't like risks. She likes predictability. So will she be fully allowing changes right away? We shall see. But she does also rule the 11th house of Libra, which can also connect to legislation. Parliament, especially the House of Commons, Town and Country Councils, and similar bodies, Friends of the Nation, again symbolizing the possibility of new legislation, beneficiaries, as well as the fact that she's strong here in rulership and rules the sixth. It can indicate also illnesses. It would seriously add to this, or I would add to this, that as Uranus is also present here and Venus is squaring Pluto at 29 degrees in the second house, there may be financial changes or events that simply cannot be ignored. And even though Venus in Taurus does want something solid and dependable and is in rulership, it doesn't seem it is available at this time. It can also suggest that there is Uranus revolutionary action against these controlling plutonic changes. Remember, Uranus deals with rioting, outbreaks, political tension, right-wing political ideas, free market enterprise, fascism, the urge towards individualism. It rules separation, scientific breakthroughs, discoveries, explosions, anarchy, and nihilism. In this chart, Pluto is on the 29th degree of Capricorn, whereas in the solar return chart, we have Pluto at 0 of Aquarius. So we have both sides this year for us as a country. We are still finishing off old business and preparing for the future, but the future has arrived loud and clear. Now, it's at the 29th degree of Capricorn in this chart, in the financial second house of the chart also, symbolizing the edge we are on, the edge before a powerful financial shift, transformation, and power transfer. It is time to ensure that you're on a solid value system, that your morals are intact, that your self-worth is strong, and as a result, we will enjoy greater abundance as a country. Matters of power and control are also likely to be prominent. Gold investments are highly recommended at this time by many financial astrologers. Venus in rulership in the 6th, I didn't mention, can also benefit small animals, especially rare animals and exotic animals, or have some kind of financial connection to it, as well as new legislation, also in regards to social welfare. The moon in the 4th is also conjunct Neptune and can denote deception or many misinterpretations. The people are also much more spiritual during this time. As also the Sagittarius ascendant indicates, we are focused on spiritual matters and spiritual transformation as well. Neptune rules socialism, communism, left-wing political ideas. Its urge is towards collectivism. It is linked with mobs, secret plots, sedition, fraud, and swindling, and all illicit undertakings and bogus companies, loss, and vice. And this is in this chart in the 4th house. The 4th house deals with the land, the owners of it, the workers on it, the crops, the produce of the land, the mines and buildings, the people as contrasted with the monarch, the democracy as contrasted with the aristocracy, the opposition in parliament. A planet close to the cusp of this house may influence its weather. So we can also, expect weather extremes. A malefic in this house may afflict the government through its opposition to the 10th, which is the case in this case. This is where the people have their attention at. The moon also applies to an opposition within 2 degrees of the midheaven, suggesting a gathering of energy and strength for the people in order to deal with times to come. We are spiritually going inward. A regrouping, so to say, a ponder on the outside world events and our inner worlds. But it is also, again, strengthening the feelings and passions of the people and the reactionary energy. And they are willing to defend their own turf, the land, the country, and everything in it. Again, it brings our attention to our identity and who we are. Who are we now? After all this time has passed, since 1994, who are we now? But again, with Neptune here, we can also deal with many drownings, floodings, natural disasters, and action at sea are possible during this time. The Sun is exalted in Aries in the 5th house, squares Mars, conjuncts Mercury, as well as Neptune. Now, the Sun represents the Prime Minister, the monarch, the aristocracy, magistrates, judges, and all persons in authority or of distinction in some way, cabinet ministers and the like. It also represents public heroes and national champions. Now, the Sun here, when the first thing that came to my mind when I saw national champions was I realized that the 5th house, where the Sun is at, deals also with sport. But I will continue for another before I get to that. Now, the Sun is conjunct Mercury with also Chiron and Jupiter here, giving the president or leaders or the ANC or whoever is in power to change things, to face challenges head on, to take risks, to act according to the country's or their own interests. There are decisions to be made, and the youth can be involved in some way as well. But there's decisions being made that could include topics about sovereignty and freedom and obviously political reasons. A leader can change his hat or suit, so to say, or beliefs in some way. More illness in children can be expected. Changes in education, languages, and negotiations as a topic. Political party fundings, campaigns. Sport can do well under this placement and can take front stage news. Now, when I was doing this I had no idea that we have the Rugby World Cup this year. So I found it, I said to my husband, there should be a lot of action in regards to sport in South Africa this year. And then he looked at me and he said, well, it's the Rugby World Cup. And I was like, oh, there you go. This can also indicate that defense is taken, as Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars is found in the 7th house of open enemies, whilst also ruling the 12th of secret enemies. Would we have to defend our sovereignty? Could this have to do with the World Health Organization and defending our sovereignty, or risking it instead? So much will be uncovered. It also puts the president or leaders or ambassadors on the front stage somehow. This can be on the world stage, as the placements here are Aries on the world axis, but also brings a focus on the 5th house, which deals with foreign investments, something new built up from scratch, a new currency perhaps, a new leader, a new solution, freedom, theaters, public houses, all places of amusement, entertainment, pleasure, the birth rate, children, sexual concerns, sport on a world stage, speculation, gambling, connected with high society and formal social functions, which the president can be part of. It has also been suggested that it relates to the House of Lords, the opposition to the 11th, and traditional astrologers included ambassadors under this house. Now, Mars and Mercury are in mutual reception, and this can emphasize partnership or working together with others to get something off the ground, but they're also square. So could this be a financial decision that brings some kind of backlash or strong opposition? The 7th house, where the ruler of the 5th house sits, deals with foreign affairs, relations with other countries, friendly or hostile, political or commercial, and also deals with the marriage and divorce rates. Now, the 7th house ruler in the 5th house can indicate financial losses in risky undertakings, but it also rules the 10th of government, and can in this case indicate gains as well. But since the Sun is also conjunct Neptune, loss is more prone. And this might not be an auspicious time for financial matters, but rather for weighing options, because this can be confusion with Neptune here. It can also be deception or loss. The ascendant ruler is also in the 5th house, putting another spotlight here. And again, as the Sun also rules the 9th house, these topics, as mentioned, is also a hot spot. And with the Sun and Neptune, this can also bring financial matters to the ruler himself, and his own personal financial issues could be at a dissolving spot in some way. The Sun is also square the ascendant, applying, and success is within our grasp this year. We may feel like we have, and when I say the Sun, it's the ruler or the ruling party, may have a few challenges along the road to accomplishment, but progress is one of the themes right now as we reassess our ideas about ourselves, our life, and our aspirations as a country. However, we're also aware of the factors that we need help. And a little patience and persistence can be good. There could be private goals that we are pursuing. It doesn't necessarily have to be public achievements, but through the challenges we will grow. The Sun is also sextile Pluto. Quite simply, the message is truth and transformation play out during the course of this year. This is the year to manifest the glory of God that is within us. So this is a year where we should not be afraid of our power, but actively share our light with the world. The challenge is to allow the process of transformation to take place in the government and in our country. Because any obstacles that stand in our path are likely to be removed, not necessarily painlessly, but can and has the possibility of this. This can be uncomfortable at first. Nevertheless, the time is right for us to be liberated from negativity and to find renewed purpose. Mars in the 7th house is squaring the Sun in the 5th, and which is the president or a prominent leader or a sport figure, and the Sabian symbol connected to the 28th degree of Gemini, where Mars is sitting, is bankruptcy granted to him. A man leaves the court. And as to king, as to country. Mars governs the military, soldiers, and noted military and naval men, war, terrorist attacks, industrial disputes, strikes and conflicts, opposition forces, fire services, arson, and incendiarism. And with its square to the Sun, it can also indicate possible terrorist attacks, hacking, bringing us back to that 7th house opposition and all types of foreign relation placements. Mars trines Saturn and indicates that even though there is hard work at hand or a difficult situation, the ability to cope with the situation is strong. What is chosen must be useful, practical, and good. Mars, the ruler of the leader, also squares Neptune. This can indicate deceptive action, but if the easy road here is taken, it will only cause more demoralizing and discouraging consequences as a result. It can also indicate a tendency to want to give up or to take to illness, or this can indicate more indecision and weighing of options regarding important parliamentary decisions or partnerships and or foreign relations. Mars and what it rules, the military, the leadership, opposition forces, etc., can become intensely competitive to strive for its goal. This can stir up great resistance and all kinds of activism. Working to transform, modernize, and reform within the system may prove more productive, or not if it doesn't align with what's going on in our internal worlds. Saturn's message this year is to get your house in order. That's for everyone and the whole of this country, the whole of ourselves, which of course includes our spiritual selves as well. But there is an emphasis on preparing and protecting ourselves and our resources. And with the North Node currently still in Taurus at this time, the message is to go back to basics, where the rest go back to the future. Neptune in the 4th in Pisces brings an unstable feeling to our foundations, and the Sabian symbol for its degree is a new moon that divides its influences. Neptune, as I mentioned, deals with socialism, communism, left-wing political ideas. It's linked with secret plots, sedition, fraud, swindling, illicit undertakings, bogus companies, loss and vice, and it's also linked with mobs. The 4th house deals with the land, the owners of it, crops and produce of the land, mines, buildings, everything that upholds us, aristocracy, the opposition in parliament, people versus the monarch, a planet close to the cusp here can affect the weather, as I mentioned, and all of the opposition to the 10th house is covered here. The Libra ingress on the 23rd of September 2023 is Scorpio rising in a fixed sign energy, which lasts until South Africa's next birthday in 2024. So we go from Aquarius rising as the overall year energy, a return to ourselves, to a Sagittarius rising first 6 months influence, very international and spiritual and judicial. And then we move to, and also changeable, as Sagittarius is a mutable sign, where Aquarius is a fixed air sign. Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign. And then we move into this last 6 months period of Scorpio rising in fixed water energy, which lasts until South Africa's next birthday. And this is important. We have a first quarter moon here. The first quarter lunar phase is a crisis of action point, indicating a change or decision must be made. Drama, interesting as this is in the time that the elections should also be taking place, even though so much is at its edge of potency. The moon is in Capricorn, where it doesn't love to be. A second emphasis on the 10th house of government in this chart, as Capricorn naturally rules governments and 10th house topics, and also that last 6 months from September to March 2024 will be a time of analytical assessment of not only 10th house issues, but governmental connections regarding 3rd house issues, as this is where the moon is. Therefore, the people's focus during this time again is towards electricity, infrastructure, neighborhoods, streets, roads, communication, voting, decisions, and methodically implementing changes. It is a time to reconcile the demands of this area, to refresh the 3rd house deals with inland transit, locomotion, communication, railways, road, river, traffic, cars, airplanes, all means of disseminating news and information such as the post office, communication, networks, internet, electricity, telephones, faxes, newspapers, magazines, ephemeral publications, periodicals, and neighboring nations. The moon harmoniously trines Mercury in the 11th house of Virgo. Virgo deals with practical solutions, innovation, and also licensing, the future, beneficiaries, goals, and international and financial connections, allies and partnerships of the country. Mercury is in rulership and exalted in Virgo, and also rules the 8th house of Gemini, which is also a financial house, suggesting again shared resources or partnerships, contracts and agreements, decisions and transformation here. And this can all also be connected financially in some funding of some sort. The sun is ruling the 10th house of Leo in this chart, indicating a focus on matters directly linked to the government, the direction of the country. So we've got a double whammy in this chart as far as government is concerned. The radix government house is now the ascendant house, and the Leo house is now on the government house. So this is double governmental change happening here. So it's indicating a focus on matters directly linked to the government, the direction of the country, important ruling decisions, and everything the 10th house rules, such as the monarch, the president, the ANC, the government, people in authority, royalty, eminent and famous persons, national trade, the national reputation, credit and power, and public employment rate. The sun itself is found in the 12th house of Libra, indicating a loss here, an ending. The sun may be setting on the president or the ruling party of government, or this can also indicate partnerships because it's in Libra, or a duality of sorts, a coalition, or the end of such a possibility. But change here is expected, and the 12th house here also deals with prisons, reformatories, criminals, spies, secret enemies of the country, in country or abroad, hospitals, asylums, institutions for those who are weak, infirmities, or people that are in need of charity, the welfare state, possible secret societies, and occult religions. So this can also indicate some powerful figures being imprisoned or having something to do with the topics I just mentioned. Putting the ruler's attention on these areas, and also the possibility that the president could fall ill or deal with loss of office or dignity or loss of honor through a conviction or persecution by others in office or secret enemies, confinement, retirement, restriction, or mourning of sorts. Because this is the 12th house, it can also deal with foreign diplomacy or influences as well as part of the ruler's connections at this time. The ruler of the sun in the 12th of Libra is Venus, and she is in the 10th house of government in Leo, in mutual reception with the sun. It is an excellent 6-month period during which to lay the groundwork for a future project. But as so much focus is on government, I would say it's another check mark for governmental transformation, as the Saturn return is upon us and the sun in the 12th is pregnant and ready to birth new leadership. The sun quincunxes Saturn, opposes Neptune, and also trines Pluto, which is indicative that the ANC or the president, as mentioned above, will be facing responsibilities and consequences of past decisions and actions. With Venus in mutual reception with the sun, financial decisions again pops up, but also indicates that with the opposition to Neptune, it is not a great time, possibly for financial decisions. Neptune here can also denote facing illicit undertakings and left-wing political ideas. Pluto's trine, the challenge is to allow the process of transformation to take place because any obstacles that stand in the way are likely to be removed. This can be an uncomfortable feeling, as I've mentioned previously, to say the least, if you are attached to the way something has always been done. Nevertheless, the time is right for you to be liberated from the past and negativity and to find renewed purpose. Mercury is in Virgo exalted and in the 11th house. A new plan or commitment has potential of materializing this year. A partnership or vote that involves legislation, government, money, a benefactor, a political party, a group, or an ally, joining a new group, or changes in an alliance or partnership. This is also a financial house, which again also brings about the BRICS group topic, as well as central bank digital currency, as this house also deals with technology. The next 6 months, networking plays a key role. You objectively reassess governing as well as social commitments, group interests, and causes. And we are to stay adaptable as the cards are being reshuffled. Mercury deals with governs the literary world, newspapers, publishers, ambassadors, trade and commerce, and the intellectual world, the nation's communication and telecoms industry, electricity, local transport issues, voting and decisions, and general movement. And the 11th house deals with Parliament, especially the House of Commons, town and country councils and similar bodies, friends of the nation, legislation, licensing, benefactors, and so forth, and international connections. The ruler of the 11th here can indicate beneficial connections or connections with radical or ingenious people, which again could promise developments and innovation regarding our power and electricity crisis. The 11th would also rule over the connections with the World Health Organization, as we also have Virgo sitting here. So we can expect to see more of these developments taking stage as well. Mercury is in an applying trine to Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus' 7th house, suggesting a harmonious connection involving a partnership, and Uranus would make it unusual or unexpected, or dealing with electricity and or technology in some way. The fact that these planets are also in the 7th of Taurus adds another emphasis on the financial connection here. The seventh house deals with foreign affairs, relations with other countries, whether friendly or hostile, political or commercial, and also the marriage and divorce rate of the country. Venus in Leo, the ruler of the seventh, in the 10th house, again puts focus on partnership that can change the course of the country's direction. Venus rules and governs women's issues, the national birth rate, social factors connected to marriage and children, artists, musicians, and the arts, facilities for sport and entertainment, peace and diplomatic resolutions. It also deals with partnerships, money. This can also add connections or partners that are interested in equality or peace, and could also indicate a woman in government taking a spotlight. Venus sextiles Mars in Libra, her sign. Even though Mars doesn't prefer Libra as a placement, it can favor relationships, it can balance the give and take in a partnership, and it can also indicate innovative projects, financial opportunities, and makes for a more harmonious relation. It can, in general, bring balance between self-assertion and the partner, but in the fact that Mars is in Libra, could also add in some back and forth on an idea or the actual commitment here, as it can indicate indecision could also be possible, and self-assertion can be blocked with Mars in Libra. Another thing I wanted to mention before I move on is that Venus will be retrograding in Leo for about 4 months this year. Now, this is a very, very big retrogradation for Venus. We can also think back about 2014, 2015, when it was last retrograde in Leo, and think back to what may have occurred at that time, because there could be similar themes appearing now. Maybe a full circle moment with Venus retrograding in Leo again from June until September this year. So that's also a period where we will need to keep an eye on what's happening, as Venus traditionally also rules our sun and it rules money. And with all the financial changes happening in the world, we can expect huge shifts during this time. Mars in Libra, Mars rules the military, soldiers, military and naval men, war, terrorist attacks, industrial disputes, strikes and conflicts, opposition forces, fire services, arson, and incendiarism. That word. It could also denote deceptions, as Mars is in the 12th of secret enemies, rules the 6th of enemies, as well as also the 1st of Scorpio, the people, the country, in the 12th, which now undermines our self-assertion and can actually indicate an emotionally reactive time of action, but again focuses on government, as this change and chart brings Scorpio, the radix 10th house, to the 1st as a prime focus with its ruler in the 12th of loss, which again indicates change here, as Saturn promises with its return. Libra and the 12th are also connected to welfare states and equality, or peaceful negotiations. Venus also squares Uranus in Taurus in the 7th, and this can again bring for unusual partnerships or a challenge with a partner of sorts here. An existing pattern in the relationship could come up and become difficult to deal with, even if it knowingly is basically constructive. Mars in detriment in Libra in the 12th house of losses can indicate losses in the armed forces in faraway places, but on another note, it can indicate secret missions, unhappiness for the country overall. It can again bring in the fact that it rules the government in the radix chart, and it's in the 12th here of loss, or restrictive conditions as it rules the 1st house. Many losses due to health issues, as it also rules the 6th, and can also indicate restrictive conditions connected to health and also everyday life and work conditions, prosperity, and so forth. But the sextile to Venus can assist, but its dispositor is also in the 12th. The Sabian symbol for Mars here is two men getting arrested. Mars rules the military, soldiers, like I've covered here before. I'm not going to go over that again. But Mars here, though, can be good for charitable work, prayer, and also for holistic healing practices when it's in the 12th house. Now, Jupiter in Taurus with your... Oh, and before I move on, it can also deal with weapons and also the restriction of weapons and the use of them. And Jupiter in Taurus with Uranus 7th house also rules the 2nd house of finances and the 5th house of high society, and again indicates partnership topics related to money as well as technology. And in general, Jupiter is a benefic planet and can bring success in lawsuits, battles, and partnerships, or opportunities and blessings, but also foreign ties. And its dispositor sits in the 10th of government. For reference, Jupiter rules the religious and judicial world, the national state, religion, priests, divinities, the justice system, prominent judges, barristers, national inquests, the nation's wealth, banks as well as bankers, and international connections, and also spiritual connections. Again, BRICS and the CBDC comes to mind. The 7th house rules foreign affairs, relations with other countries, whether friendly or hostile, political or commercial, national marriage divorce rate, which in this case can expand. Saturn rules and has chief influence over elderly people. It governs the national death rate, life-threatening epidemics, landowners, farmers, mines, coal, and industries connected to metals and minerals, state funerals, public sorrow, as well as disappointment and responsibility. The 5th house rules theater, public houses, places of amusement, entertainment and pleasure, sport. The birth rate, children, sexual concerns, speculation, gambling. Some consider it connected with high society, formal social functions. It's also suggested that it relates to the House of Lords and also ambassadors. Saturn is in Pisces in the 5th house and puts attention and responsibilities on creative, self-made projects and innovations. And since it is the ruler of the 3rd that deals with infrastructure and communication and decisions, let us be hopeful that this is work on our electricity crisis, but this is also a financial house and again brings our attention to financial projects with others, as it is a financial house and also brings the radix 2nd here. It minimizes social interactions and adds hard work, sadness and seriousness or loss regarding the youth, or issues of the 5th house is also possible, loss of sovereignty, drownings, loss at sea, and water issues are all possible here. But as this is also considered a lucky house, it does have Pisces here. But let's pray for the blessings of the 5th house rather than the disappointments that Pisces can bring. Uranus in Taurus in the 7th can bring partnerships and ally changes or surprises or maybe a change in commitments. Neptune in the 5th in rulership in Pisces is sextile Pluto in the 3rd house of Capricorn and can indicate the creative innovations and projects and ideas, with Saturn also here as being worked on, physically being worked on. Pluto in the 3rd focuses us or forces us to look at the 3rd house topics and the truth of it all, as it will be exposing truth wherever it goes. The 3rd house deals with, like I've mentioned before, transit, communication, railways, cars, airplanes, disseminating of information, infrastructure, electricity, internet, neighboring nations, magazines, etc. Pluto denotes the principle of metamorphosis, regeneration. It deals with excrement. It deals with sewers. It deals with all aspects of life that's done in a hidden way. Political undergrounds, espionage, organized crime, great wealth and power, powerful influence, violence, manipulation, rape, all activities that are transformative, and that creates a change, and that brings hidden information into the light. It also co-rules the first house of Scorpio with Mars in the modern systems. And again, as it is the radix 10th of government to the rising for the last 6 months from September until the end of March, we can say much of the hidden corruption will be exposed this year. Now, the Fedoria period for South Africa currently is a Jupiter period until April of 2026. This period of active advancement and development. Perhaps some benefactor will appear and assist to go to the higher strata. Jupiter rules the 2nd and 11th houses of South Africa, which deal with financial institutions as well as government allies, political parties, international affairs, technology, legislation, councils, and the future. This is important as in 2026, South Africa will enter a Mars period that will last until 2032, which will be quite active and can be more revolutionary toned. South Africa is in a 5th house profection year with the ruler Mercury to keep an eye on. This puts an extra emphasis on the 5th house in mundane astrology that deals with sovereignty, freedom, theaters, public houses, all places of amusement, entertainment, pleasure, the birth rate, children, sexual concerns, sport, speculation, gambling. Some consider that it is connected with high society, formal social functions, House of Lords, ambassadors, advisors of the government, the youth, and the opposition to the 11th, building something up from scratch, doing something ourselves, independence, self-made, expressing ourselves, doing our own thing, collaboration with others, and developing important relationships will be a top priority with this house as a profection. But also finances, freedom, independence, sovereignty, politics, connectivity, the media, internet, electricity, sport, art, common property, and the youth can take center stage this year. Mercury's retrograde periods are in all earth signs this year until the end of the year, where it falls into a fire sign, and will bring in structural, real world, tangible changes. And interesting that this is the house that rules sport, and we have a world state rugby tournament awaiting, or world stage, I should say. And Mercury, with its retrogrades, are potent times for us this year because Mercury is the ruler of this profected house for us. So we will need to keep a watch as well. It will, the first one has started. We're in it at this time. In Taurus, earthy Taurus, from April 21st until the 15th of May. But really, yes, let's just leave it at that. Again, a financial focus for the world as well as agriculturally. August 23rd to 15th of September, it'll be in Virgo, which also brings another health focus and solution-oriented time. And the 13th of December till the 1st of January in Capricorn and Sag. South Africa's 4th, 8th, and 12th houses. So this is so symbolic of shedding the past and moving through purification towards transformative change. And Mercury retrogrades are times where things can go a little haywire. But it's also a time that's really, really good for improving things, finishing up loose ends, working on things that need, where we maybe need to just research it a little bit more, or cross those T's, or really improve on something. Now, this will be taking place in the 4th house, the 8th house, and the 12th house. And the 4th house deals with the owners of the land, the workers on it, the crops and the produce of the land, mines, buildings, the people as contrasted with the monarch, the democracy as contrasted with the aristocracy, the opposition in parliament. A planet close to the cusp of this house may influence the weather, like I've mentioned. The 8th house deals with the public mortality rate, the death rate, the kinds of people who die, death duties, financial relations with foreign countries, funding, debt, taxes, and so forth, loans, mortgages, and so forth. The 12th house deals with prisons, reformatories, criminals, spies, secret enemies of the country at home or abroad, hospitals, asylums, institutions for those who are weak, infirm, or in need of charity, the welfare state, possible secret societies, and occult religion, and anything that is done under the table. So eclipses for this year, the eclipses are happening in Aries, Taurus, Scorpio, and Libra in this year. Since 2021, we've been having the rocking of the main areas of our country, such as the government and the electricity topics, with the eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio. It's also been working with us on a financial level in the shadows. But recently we just had our first Aries eclipse in the next sequence, as the nodes are shifting from Taurus and Scorpio into Aries and Libra now. Therefore, expect pivotal shifts in regards to the 3rd, 4th, 10th, and 9th houses of government, infrastructure, law and justice, foreign affairs, the financials, as well as the land and electricity. August 18th, 2023, progressed Mercury at 27 Gemini in the 5th house will quincunx natal Pluto at 27 degrees in Scorpio, the 10th house. And this can be a redirecting, a challenge, adjustment, or a need to adjust or to divert between two points that cannot be merged. The youth, the opposition, activism or disruption of some kind, arguments regarding governmental corruption, or two political parties arguing, not getting along, issues regarding freedom of speech, of sovereignty, of freedom, connected to the media, trade, ambassadors, commerce, communications, electricity. It can be transportation issues because it's Mercury. It can be just freedom of movement. It can deal with 5th house topics such as sport, theaters, amusement, pleasure, high society, the opposition parties, opposition to the 11th, ambassadors, and so forth. On September 20th, 2023, the solar arc Mercury conjuncts the radix Venus at 0 degrees of Gemini, again in the 5th house. And this is important to note, that this 5th house that I've been mentioning is the profected house for the year as well. And it's getting a lot of attention this year. For us to stand up for our rights is coming up very strongly. On September 20th, 2023, the solar arc Mercury conjuncts the radix Venus at 0 degrees of Gemini in the 5th house, again, potentially suggests development of an idea, communication, or travels connected to an opportunity, or partnership, or relationship, or address to the public, possibly also including some legal, political, financial, or foreign investments, land, resources, electricity, sport, or social details are possible. Venus and Mercury is in mutual reception. Here are some partnership or they're in mutual reception, and some partnership or solution can be made legal, or a contract could be considered or negotiated. On October 31st, 2023, progressed Venus in Gemini will sextile the natal sun in Taurus at 6 degrees, and the president or rulers are able to take their abilities and make them work in a partnership or some kind of agreement or legal decision or negotiation. On December 11th, 2023, I almost said South Africa, solar arc Uranus will square the radix north node at 24 degrees of Scorpio, the 10th house of government, as well as the south node in Taurus, the 4th house, suggesting status changes that may lead to greater individuation, freedom, or innovative change. Individuation may necessitate a separation from old relationships and facing skipped steps or where we went wrong, but also seeing the possible way out as a potency point is reached here. The people have had enough and could revolt. This would emphasize the metamorphosis regarding our financial world, currency, technology, our government, and the energy crisis. As Uranus has a general influence over rioting, outbreaks of political tension, right-wing political ideas, free market enterprise, fascism, and the urge towards individualism, it rules separation, scientific breakthroughs, and discoveries, explosions, anarchy, and nihilism. Now, on December 14th, 2023, South Africa's, I did it again, solar arc Neptune will square the radix moon in the 10th house of Scorpio at 21 degrees, suggesting inspiration or confusion, and can bring the people expressing themselves through art or activism in some way, but also deception regarding the government and the people, and possibly ego wipeout for the current government. Neptune rules socialism, communism, and left-wing political ideas. Its urges towards collectivism. It is linked with mobs, secret plots, sedition, fraud and swindling, and illicit undertakings, bogus companies, loss, and vice. On January 14th, 2024, the solar arc sun at 5 degrees of Gemini, 8 minutes, will quincunx the midheaven, and this is also the profected house, as well as the year where the elections are taking place, dealing with the 10th of government, the sun, the leader, in the profected house of Gemini, a sign that deals with decisions, dual parties, or two, a tie, a partnership, and it also deals with voting. Now, Neptune, again, deals with socialism, communism, left-wing political ideas. Its urge is collectivism. It is linked with mobs, secret plots, sedition, fraud and swindling, illicit undertakings, bogus companies, loss and vice. So there can also be deception here. Pluto at 0 degrees and 47 minutes trines natal Venus in Gemini 3 times with retrograding on February 15th, 2024. July 26, 2024, and December 22nd of 2024. And this can be financial, technological connections, power and control topics, transformative change and leadership topics. Transiting Jupiter in Aries, 3rd house, squares natal Uranus in Capricorn, 12th house at 26 degrees in Capricorn. A clear energy connection regarding electricity. A crisis or challenge has gotten out of hand. Or has it led to an innovative idea? A huge sudden push for change and independence, foreign and political strings attached. Transiting Mars in the 6th house of Cancer, square Chiron in Aries, the 3rd house, on the 27th of April, 2023, and shows again how we are to turn our past wounds into strength. We have come to a point where we are done with the past. Are we to act from a place of unconscious reaction or conscious action, turning lead into gold? This could scream energy crisis that hits a peak and to bring us to that place of no return and birthing something new, as these transits are what we are currently dealing with. Transiting Saturn in Pisces, second house trines the midheaven at 5 degrees in Scorpio on the 27th of April, on August 9th, 2023, as well as January 20th, 2024. And January 20th is also the date that Pluto officially connects with the Sun at 0 degrees of Aquarius as it enters Aquarius for the next 20 years. So this is a very important transit. It also will bring in connections to the financial and governmental changes for South Africa as we are receiving our Saturn return in February. Government and financial cooperation in the Saturn return warm-up taking place. We're being pushed to upgrade, to put the past behind us and reinvent, rebirth our new values. Transiting Sun in Taurus, the 4th squares the natal ascendant at 9 degrees in Aquarius on the 29th of April, 2023, and the people are at odds with the rulership. Transiting Sun in Taurus, the 4th is sextile natal Saturn in Pisces at 9 degrees on April 30th. Financial topics, leadership. Transiting Saturn in Pisces, the 2nd house sextiles the natal Sun at 6 degrees in Taurus 3 times with retrograde. May 17th, 2023, July 19th, 2023, and January 31st, 2023, concurring the above transit topics, adding the president or ruler or ruling government as well. Transiting Neptune in Pisces, 2nd house trines natal Pluto at 27 degrees and 15 minutes in the 10th house on May 21st, 2023, August 10th, 2023, and March 14th, 2024, November 16th, 2024, and December 28th, 2024. Financial, governmental, left-wing, political, transformative connections once again, and a dissolving and deception revelations are possible here. Other important dates to look at is May 20th, as there will be a fixed cross in the sky. The period of June to September, like I've mentioned, we have Venus, the ruler of our sun, the ruler also of our opposition party in government. It also deals with partnerships and money, retrograding in Leo, a financial house. So we can also expect things to go back and forth and being reevaluated during this time, such as reestablishing boundaries due to our values changing. This is a world point. We will be seeing huge financial shifts, especially by the time Pluto is fully in Aquarius in January of 2024. And I feel like they will be finalizing things on a world level by the time Uranus finishes its transit in Taurus, which is in 2026, around 2026, 2025, 2026. So, and as we are world players with Aquarius on the 1st house, we will be affected directly. July 17th, the North Node moves into Aries, our 3rd house, and South Node into Libra, our 9th house. The North Node is our destiny path where we are to move towards. In our 3rd house, it will emphasize new leaderships, independence, pioneering new territory, shining in glory, technological innovations, trade, currency, electricity, and all 3rd house matters will be affected over the next 18 months. This is the area of intense focus, also ruled by Mars, which also rules our government of Scorpio. Therefore, Mars is also a planet to watch as we're ready to face conflict head on and any issues regarding the 3rd house. So this is also the area where the eclipses will be creating change for us. The third house, as I've mentioned, deals with transportation, transit, all kinds, communication, internet, electricity, infrastructure, voting. It deals with newspapers, movement, all of that. It also deals with our neighbors. It deals with, let me go over Mars again. Mars deals with the military, soldiers, naval men, war, weapons, terrorist attacks, industrial disputes, strikes and conflicts, opposition forces, fire services, arson, and incendiarism. Now, furthermore, the North Node here suggests that we need to develop skills, that we may need to connect with others to reach our goals on these things, on these areas, in order to grow, as this is a natural Gemini house, which can suggest partnerships. But since it's in Aries, we could also go at it alone. Regardless, we have the power to trump our issues, but it also can be taken over by a world influence, as it's Aries, and Aries is a world axis. So it could also be taken over by a world-controlled power, but it can also be an area where we can take our power back and trump this ourselves. It also suggests learning to work with the people around us and also brings joy into the table. For the next 18 months, the devil is in the details. All major decisions will need to be fine-combed, but this is the time to take the lead. The dispositor of the North Node will be Mars once it's in Aries, and Mars is in Cancer, the 6th house, conjunct the moon in rulership, in the solar return, which is the overall view that I look at. It would hope that this connection regarding our health systems will be where we go at it independently and not join the WHO with their new treaties and their path of total control on an international level. As it stands against our human rights and true democracy, this is where Aquarius rebelliousness could be fantastic. Let us not join the world. Let us stand and protect our sovereignty and face the consequences together. We are strong enough with God on our side. Mercury's retrograde position in the solar return chart suggests the importance of prioritizing existing obligations before taking on new ones. Not only during the 3-week retrograde period, but for the whole year. And this specifically speaks to the president as well and the ANC. Certain decisions or topics may have to be dealt with again or repeated in some way or another. It is a great year to tie up loose ends and to reevaluate and replan, rethink and check the details, cross the T's, prepare, research. It is advisable to bring unfinished matters up to date and handle any incomplete business. However, it is not a prohibition from starting fresh projects for the entire year. Instead, it serves as a cautionary warning to ensure that you are prepared and have a clear plan of action before initiating new ventures. In other words, make sure that you have everything in order and ready to proceed. Mercury is conjunct the Sun, which rules the Prime Minister, monarch, aristocracy, magistrates, judges, and all persons in authority and of distinction, cabinet members. It also represents public heroes and national champions. Mercury deals with the literary world, newspapers, voting, decisions, connections, speeches, ambassadors, trade and commerce, and the intellectual world, the nation's communications and telecoms industry, internet, electricity, local transportation. In summary, South Africa's highlights for 2023 into 2024 deals with changes in all the main areas of the country, the government especially, the energy crisis with innovation and possible solutions, as well as the financial changes and tech and power and control. We are rethinking relationships, freedom, sovereignty, energy, power, and regeneration is at hand and continues. Our communications improve, We are breaking free from past subconscious control patterns. We are upgrading what home and blood is for us. We are rediscovering and redefining what home and blood is for us, what truth is for us, and where we belong in and on a world stage and a world scale. Buried truths surface this year. Perhaps our trust was misplaced. But this year, South Africa and its inhabitants are ready to change course. Events may cause us to step into murky waters, but will allow us to uncover our past, uncover corruption, allowing for greater understanding, more clarity to our path forward, and opportunity for healing and cleansing to take place. Its Mars is also in the 12th, suggesting we should all be getting on our knees now in prayers and in thanksgiving. Let us remember to live in gratitude and pray for God's divine guidance in our path forward, that we will not succumb to the ways of the world, but remind ourselves that we are set apart. We are, after all, a country with Aquarius on the ascendant. We can do it differently, and we can succeed, even if we have to stand alone, as God's hand is over this country, and just as the Waterbearer suggests and connects us on earth to the ethers of the divine and the living waters of the divine, God is able to pour it over us to give us strength for the biggest transformation since the new South Africa in 1994 that this Saturn return will haul in for us over the next year. I would also like to read to you Saturn, the ruler of the ascendant of Aquarius in the solar return chart, is at 5 degrees of Pisces. And the inside degrees for this is thousands of gold nuggets glistening at the bottom of a clear stream. Subtle senses, you sense the subtle depths of experience and find therein glory, majesty, and divine power. Your eyes inside are open in places others are blind. You are shown the wonders of the deep, yet an immense destiny challenges. For this is a selfless realm, utterly selfless. Can you uphold the inner light in its own pure radiance? It takes great courage, for you will be flooded by collective contents and asked to serve totally. Can you rise to this? Or will special colorings shadow this realm? Only true inspiration can show the way, and if there comes instead the idea of it, the received image, the secondary version, all will be illusory and like fool's gold, of a shallow consistency, losing all savor. And I will end with Deuteronomy 4, verse 31. The Lord your God is a compassionate God. He will not fail you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant with your fathers, which he swore to them. I will also be putting out a new video for you about Pluto entering Aquarius that will summarize that a bit easier. I did want to put it in here, but it would make this video way too long. So please check that out. I will be linking it in the description once I'm finished with it, but otherwise you can just keep an eye on to that. Please like and subscribe. It really helps to get my content out, as I'm also trying to grow this channel. And I wish you the best 2023 into 2024. May the sun shine bright on you this day. May there be blessings coming your way. Until next time. Bye-bye.